I was 17 at the time when this happened. My parents and I were visiting my grandparents' house in Jalisco, Mexico. We lived in Las Vegas, Nevada, but we would travel to see my grandmother every 2 to 3 months. My grandmother is quiet. She's a really peaceful, strong, and very admirable woman who had been through so much in her lifetime. She dedicated her life to being a mother at age 16. She lived in Jalisco. For those who don't know, Jalisco is the seventh largest state in Mexico. It's also where the mariachi music and charreras, otherwise known as the Mexican rodeos, were created. One day, my parents, along with my grandmother, went to a nearby town for my grandmother's checkup. Being that they left together, it was myself and my grandpa back when he was alive at the house until they came back. My grandfather is the reason for my grandmother's trauma. You would only know of him because of how much he hurt people. And let me just get things straight. I love my grandfather. I'm not trying to make him sound like a bad person or, degrade him in any type of way. God bless his soul. I love him. But I'm just telling the story and how he did my grandmother wrong and the stuff he put her through. He forced my grandmother to sleep on the floor with the kids while pregnant because there was only one comfortable bed in the house. My grandfather was very mysterious and very reserved, probably because he knew he wasn't a good person. He was living a double life with an escort that he met. They had a daughter, and I just want you to picture this. He's married to my grandmother. She started raising their kids at 16, sleeping on the floor so he can sleep in a comfortable bed, and he's out with an escort, gets the escort pregnant, and they have a daughter. And he's living a double life. Could you imagine that? He would say to my grandmother, "If you had bigger breasts and flutes, then maybe I'd love you." He never once apologized to my grandmother, even on his deathbed. Okay, now their home, it was a 2-story home, which was really secluded and really secured. There were levels for going through the front door of my grandparents' house. And I'm talking about you had to go through a metal door, then through a 5-inch door just to attempt to come in the house. And after you come through the 2 big doors, then you have a key that only my grandmother had. So there I was, laying on the bed, scrolling through social media, and then out of nowhere it hit me. Bam! I felt this immense fear or anxiousness, kind of like a fear that if you're walking along through a parking garage at night and hear a group of men behind you and then realize they're catcalling you, my body tensed up so bad that I was almost paralyzed from this fear that I felt. My mind was filled with so many thoughts that I was confused. It was a mix of fear, anxiousness, paranoia, because I thought that I was being watched, or at least it's that feeling you get when you're in a crowd of people and you feel someone staring, but you don't want to look around. You know that they're looking at you and you want to look around and find them, but you're scared of making eye contact with the person that's watching you creepily. Where did this feeling come from? Why am I so afraid? Am I having a panic attack? Why do I feel like someone's here watching me? There's no one here except for me and my grandpa. And my grandpa was a very mysterious man, but he'd never sit there and just watch me. If grandpa needed me, he would call me downstairs or something. There's no reason he would just be staring at me. I pondered in my thoughts for a moment. Then I got up towards the door, and there it was. Someone was standing there. Have you ever seen a stained glass door? The doors that have a wooden frame, but a glass center. You can see through the glass, but since it's all stained, you can only see silhouettes of someone, Like you can't see their features. My grandma had one of those doors in the room I was in. So here I am, looking at the silhouette of a person just standing there looking at me through the stainless glass. I stared at the figure, and then once again, all those feelings came right back, but amplified. Because I'm sitting here looking at this thing watch me through the door when it should just be me and my grandpa at home. I'm frozen, absolutely freaking terrified, having a staring contest with this figure. But then it gets worse. I began to hear the old rusty metal doorknob turn, slow, squeaking. Then I pondered to myself, am I imagining this? There's no way this can be real. I'm just afraid and my mind is just playing tricks on me. So the figure turned the other way as if trying to get a better position on the door to get leverage. The door pushed in, as if the figure was pulling the door towards it. As it proceeded to turn the knob, I jumped off the bed so fast and crawled under it, trying to stay quiet and calm. I'm sitting there scared, terrified. I bowed my head. Then I started praying to God because I thought that this thing was going to get in and it was going to get me. When I picked my head up off the floor, I could see under the door to the room. But as I was looking under the door, I was expecting to see feet or something, but I didn't see no feet. I didn't see any. Before I could wonder, why the heck doesn't this thing have any feet? It happened again. The doorknob squeaking, as if it's being turned from left to right, but more viciously than the last time. I thought to myself, this thing's gonna get in and this thing's gonna kill me. Then I started to cry hysterically at the same time. I started to shout and call to my mother because that's all I knew to do at this point. Have you ever been so scared to where all you can do is either call for your mom or your boyfriend or just someone that makes you feel safe? I was that scared. I'm terrified to the point where I'm calling my mother. Mom, mom, mom. I am screaming, terrified. I didn't feel like I had many options. This only goes on for a moment though, and then suddenly it stopped. The doorknob wasn't being turned anymore. Whatever was happening had ceased, and I thought maybe I was imagining it. And I started to calm down. I didn't feel as if I needed to be in fight or flight anymore. That was my only way of coping with it, was to tell myself that it didn't really happen. I was honestly really hoping I was actually having an episode and that none of this really was happening. I'm still under the bed at this point, after convincing myself that it was nothing. I was not seeing what I thought I was. I stared at the bottom of the floor for a second. I didn't see anything. So I was there feeling comfort. But that didn't last long at all, because then I seen something moving across the glass tiles of the floor. So listen, the tiles were a dull cream color, but they were glossy to where you could see shadows and vague reflections on them. So I could see something moving. Once again, just like the stained door, I couldn't tell. I could only see a silhouette. I couldn't tell features, but it was there. A shadow or a dark figure floating or hovering above the floor, moving in the living room as if it was waiting for me. I couldn't make it out if it was male or female, nor did I see a face. But when I seen the door, which was freaking me out, I didn't know what the heck this thing was or wanted. I was again there hysterically crying so bad to the point I fell asleep, and I was wakened by my parents trying to unlock the door with the key that my grandmother had.